Hi, my name is Andrew Shorts, and this video is rated PG-13. If you are 13 years or older, feel free to continue watching. If you are straight, if you're bi, if you're trans, if you're gay, if you're in the closet, if you're already out of the closet, if you're homophobic, it doesn't matter, okay? Anybody else in between, this video is for you. All right, this is for entertainment purposes only, but most importantly, this is a true story. Yes, this is a factual story. This happened to me back in 1992. This is my Michael Jackson coming out video. Yes, Michael Jackson, the king of pop. So, as you guys know, the movie Michael is already in the movie theaters. It came out last weekend, and it broke box office records. All right, but there's one part of the Michael story that isn't in there, and that's my story. That's my part of Michael Jackson's life. Very brief, very minimal, but a huge impact to me as his number one fan. Yes, I know there's a lot of you out there, right? I'm his number one fan, but to this day, Michael Jackson is my favorite artist. And yeah, greatest artist of all time. Anyway, before we talk about what happened at his ranch and me coming out, let's go back in time to when I was 14 years old, okay? Every day coming home from school, there was an empty field between the bus stop and my house. So I'd walk through this empty field to get home from school every day. One particular day, I was walking through the field and I saw this magazine on the ground. And I was like, oh, okay, interesting. You know, it's just kind of next to some weeds. The pages were torn a little bit, but I flipped open the first page and I saw nakedness. I saw skin. It was a Hustler magazine. So if you're familiar with Hustler, Hustler has both guys and girls. All right? So for some reason, my eyes immediately went onto the guys. Like, I didn't even care about boobs. Like, boobs, women, I was just like, wow. Like that guy, wow. I was focused on the guys, okay? So I scrolled through the magazine, looked to see if there was anybody around, put it in my pocket, and I went home. I focused, or I used that magazine for months. And I knew at that point there was something different about me, okay? Not that there was something wrong, I want to make that very clear. Never that there was something wrong with me, just different, okay? And I didn't know that that's what it was, me being gay. So, one other thing, in junior high school, I remember very clearly in the locker room after PE class every day, not at the beginning of the year, but towards the end of the year, I started checking out my classmates. Why? Because we had to shower. We had to shower. I would never shower myself. I never was that into sports, so I would never sweat. But I would take my time changing because I was checking out the other guys taking a shower. And I remember a few times the coach or the assistant coming up to me saying, Andrew, you're dressed, aren't you ready to go? I'm like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, sorry. I would purposely take my time so I could stay as long as I could, you know, try not to make it obvious that I was checking out these guys taking a shower. If you've seen Heated Rivalry, there's a good example. So, also within that next year, I lost my virginity. It was very hush-hush. It was in private because back in the late 80s, if you were gay, like especially in the small town that I was from and how conservative my parents were, there was no way I was going to tell anybody about this. Like it was just, you know, it was shunned. Like you were a freak, you were weird, you had a problem if you were gay. So there was one other guy who was known to be gay. It was pretty obvious. He was kind of femme. And I ended up secretively meeting with him many times, and that's how I lost my virginity. So let's fast forward to when I was 18. When I turned 18, my parents moved to the Central Coast, okay? And they moved 45 minutes away from Michael Jackson's Neverland Ranch. I didn't know it at the time, but I heard rumors that that's where the ranch was at. So I'm like, really? Really? Michael Jackson? And at that point, he was huge, right? He still is. But he was my favorite artist. And I had to find out if it was true, if this was where Michael Jackson's Neverland Ranch was at. So before I get to that part, I want to talk about a girlfriend. I did have a girlfriend. I did have sex with another girl. But every time I would do something with them, I felt like something was missing. Like I wasn't complete, if that makes sense. This certain girl, I dated her because she was known for something. There was a rumor going around about her. I had to find out if it was true. And so I was with her for the longest time. But also, off and on, I was seeing guys. I started to date guys, and that's where I was like, wow, this feels right. Like, I feel home. I feel 100% comfortable, right? So this one particular guy I met, his name is Glenn. He lived about 45 minutes from my parents' house. And at the time, Glenn had lived with his grandmother. Okay, after a few weeks of dating Glenn, his grandmother and him got into a huge fight. And guess what? Grandma kicked him out. So my parents had already met Glenn. And I just asked my parents, I said, so this is what happened, Mom, Dad. Glenn got kicked out of his house. Can he stay with us for a while? And they're like, okay, yeah, sure. We like Glenn, right? Sure, no problem. So he did. Now here's a fun fact. I know this is a rule at a lot of parents' house, a lot of your houses when we're growing up, even maybe as we speak, right? The rule is that if a girl comes over and she goes into your room, the door has to stay open, right? Your parents want the door open if there's a girl that comes over. If your guy friends come over, it doesn't matter, right? The door can be shut. That was the rule at my parents' house. Kind of ironic, right? So when Glenn was there, when he would spend the night, the door was shut. And of course, like I said earlier, this video is rated PG-13. There's no need to get into details, but you can put two and two together that things happen behind the closed door. All right? Little did my parents know. We were very quiet about it, very discreet. So yes, I started going to Michael Jackson's ranch. Usually with friends. There were times where I would pile 4 or 5 friends in the car. There's a couple times where I'd go by myself. But when we started going there, the guards at the front gate are very, very good at their job. Very strict, almost like they're the CIA. I swear, if you try to ask them a question, they would never give you a direct answer. They would throw it right back at you and ask you a question, kind of like the cops do, right? So I could never get an answer out of these guys. But there was one guard in particular, that he was cool. I don't remember his name to this day. Why don't we call him Dave, okay? Dave was cool. So what Dave would do, when the other guards weren't around, or if they weren't paying attention, I would ask Dave a question, and he'd give me an indirect answer, but he'd wink. He'd give me that wink. I'd be like, yes, cool, awesome, I like you, right? So, because, he doesn't want to lose his job. His job is there to protect the King of Pop. So, as time went on, I would visit the gate, the front part of Michael Jackson's ranch on a regular basis. I want to say upwards of 1 to 2 times a month. As time went on, probably every other month. All right. What I started to do also was buy Michael Jackson presents. I remember one Christmas, I think it was the Christmas before the Dangerous album came out. I bought him a dolphin sculpture from Macy's. It was a beautiful, beautiful crystal sculpture that I got him for Christmas. And with the sculpture, I wrote him a note saying, Michael, from what I've heard, I know you don't celebrate Christmas, but take this as a winter gift. I bought him other things too. I wrote him a poem, which later became a song. I wrote a song for Michael, yes. And yeah, just every time I would go to the gate, my goal and my hope was to meet him, was to be invited in, right? And being my favorite artist, you know, of all time, who wouldn't, right? So, I'm starting to tear up. So one particular night, I was with Glenn, and I had a suspended driver's license. Okay, I had too many points on my driving record that my license was suspended. Okay, we went up to Michael Jackson's front gate, and this was about 11 o'clock at night. Okay, the cool guard, Dave, was there, and he actually said, again, indirectly, that Michael Jackson was in LA, and he's coming up, he should be coming back up the hill in about a half hour. All right? Now, where Michael Jackson's ranch sits it's up about 5 miles up a mountain road. There's a park miles and miles further up the hill, but there's nothing else around him except for a boys' ranch. Now, the boys' ranch is around the corner and down the hill. All right, so where you are at his front gate, you can only see like a part of it. It's pretty far away. Any sound, any music, any acoustics go the opposite direction. All right, so you cannot hear anything from the boys' ranch and vice versa. All right, so we were outside the front gate, and keep in mind that, you know, this is Michael Jackson's ranch, right? Anybody's ranch, it doesn't matter who it is, it's private property. So where I parked my car, it was off the road, but it was on the property of the ranch. Now, granted, it wasn't blocking the driveway or anything, but yeah. So having a suspended driver's license with my boyfriend, Glenn, I opened up the car doors and I started playing these songs from the Dangerous album. The Dangerous album had just come out the year before, and he kept producing number one hit after number one hit. My favorite song off that album was the first one that you heard, Black or White. And yeah, so we opened the car doors. I had a pretty expensive stereo system, and we danced and sing to his songs outside of the gate. So about a half hour or so goes by, and you know, just to reiterate, this is a two-lane mountain road with hardly any traffic at all. Okay, it was about 11 o'clock at night, and about a half hour goes by, and here comes a car coming up the hill. And I was like, oh my God, could that be him? Could that be Michael? And like, you know, we grabbed each other's shoulders, we started jumping up and down, we got all excited. And we're like, oh my God, this is it. We're finally gonna meet Michael. It's gonna happen, right? It's gonna happen. Like, I'm gonna meet the King of Pop, right? I grabbed my album. I grabbed my disc, right? Because I wanted Michael to sign it if that was him coming up to his ranch. I'm like, let me grab this. I want him to autograph it, you know. And well, guess what happened? Guess who it was? It was the Santa Barbara County Sheriffs. Yes, it was the sheriffs. It was the deputies. Woo! The lights came on, blue and red lights, and yep, they got out of the vehicle and they're like, hey, what are you guys doing? We're like, oh, hey, officers, we're waiting for Michael. They're like, okay, you realize this is private property, right? Like, yeah, but you know, we're not on the property, and he goes, can you turn down your music, please? And I was like, okay, sure. So I turned it down, and one of the deputies said that they got a noise complaint. That someone from the boys' ranch called because there was loud music. And I'm like, what? That doesn't make sense. That's all the way down the hill around the corner. But I'm like, okay, fine, right? So they checked my driver's license. They checked Glenn's driver's license. They immediately told me, your driver's license is suspended. And I knew that but I was like, I played dumb. I was like, oh, is it? Oops, okay, sorry. And he's like, who drove here? I was like, I did. So he's like, okay, well, you can't drive out of here. You cannot leave. I'm like, okay, thank you. At first, he kind of made a comment like, I can arrest you now. But I was out of the car, right? I wasn't driving. So how could you get in trouble for driving out a suspended license when your car's parked? So he just said, okay, you cannot drive. When they checked Glenn's record, he had a warrant for his arrest. I did not know this. He says he might have known it later on. And they arrested him. They took him in cuffs. They arrested him. They put him in the back of the cop car, and I started crying. I was like, oh my God, no, don't take away Glenn, right? I said, what's the warrant for? And they said, he has a failure to appear. And I'm like, oh my God, okay. Okay, so they took him away. And there I was by myself, about 11:30 at night, outside of his gate. And the cop said, look, you cannot be here. I need you to leave. But in my mind, I'm like, you told me I can't drive. And now he knows I have a suspended driver's license, right? So I was afraid to leave. I stayed there for another half hour, right? I didn't blast the music, of course, but I was scared to leave. I was shaking, and I'm like, you can't go up the mountain, you can only go down. So my thought was, I was like, they're gonna be sitting at the bottom of the hill waiting for me, right, to drive by on my suspended license. I'm like, I don't wanna go. Anyway, eventually I had the courage to do it, and there was no cop car. Why? Because they took Glenn to jail. So I drove home. I got home about 1 o'clock in the morning. My parents were already asleep, and I knocked on their door, and I said, Mom, Dad. I was crying. I said, wake up. They're like, oh my God, what is wrong? I was hysterical. I could barely put two words together. I was like, I told them that Glenn had gotten arrested. I said that he's arrested. And they said, where? What happened? I said, we were at Michael Jackson's ranch. What were you doing at Michael's? It was funny because my dad was more concerned about, why I was at Michael Jackson's ranch than Glenn being arrested. But anyway, so I was crying. They sit down on the couch. My mom sits on the couch. My dad sits in his chair. And I was just bawling, going, can you do something? Oh my God. I was just crying. And it didn't occur to me, but my dad says, why do you care so much? Why are you crying? Is he your boyfriend? And I was like, yes. And my mom went, oh! And my dad went, holy shit. I just came out of the closet. My mom had left. She went into her room, and my dad walked into the other room, and about 10 minutes later, I had went outside, and about 10 minutes later, my mom comes, opens the door and says, Andrew. I go, yes. She goes, come here. And she gives me a big hug, and she says, you're my son, and I love you no matter what. And I was like, oh my God. It's like, oh my God. So that was my mom's reaction, okay? You're my son, I love you no matter what. My dad, I gotta compose myself here. My dad, on the other hand, he ignored me for a whole week. And he was pissed. Very conservative in the military, and So, that night, I was still so upset that I wrote Michael Jackson a 1.5-page letter. I was so mad. I was just I was crying. I was just like, oh Michael, you're my favorite artist. You're my favorite singer of all time. Like, I remember specifically crying, and there were teardrops on the letter that I wrote. I was like, I'm your biggest fan, and I can't believe your security guard called the cops. Like, I had a feeling it was his guards. I had a feeling. There's no way in hell it could have been the Boys Ranch. So I'm like, one of your guards called the cops on us, and now my boyfriend is in jail. Do something. You know, I came to see you. I've given you gifts. You know, I wrote this song for you. You're my favorite artist, etc., right? I was like, Michael, how could you do this, right? Even though it wasn't him. So I was like, oh my God, you know. The next day, I took this 1.5 page letter, and actually, before I continue with that, at the bottom, for some reason, I put my name, my phone number, and my address, which I've never done before. Any other time I've written him a letter, I just put my phone number and I put Love Andrew. But for some reason, I put my address. So I went back up to the scene of the crime, and I dropped off the letter, and I said, please make sure Michael gets this, okay? I tried calling the jail. I go back home. I tried calling the jail, and I'm like, okay, so, you know, this person, what's he charged with? When's he going to get out? And blah, blah, blah. I was hoping he would call me, and I couldn't find out a lot of information. When the next day, when it comes to the next day, he did actually try calling, but I wasn't home. He tried calling collect. My mom said Glenn called, but she couldn't answer it in time. So what happened was, 4 days later, the next night, 3 days later. 3 days later, I get a phone call from his phone, from Glenn's phone, saying, Andrew, I'm out. I'm out. I go, what? He goes, yes, I'm out. Guess what happened? I go, what? He was like so ecstatic. He was so happy. He said, all charges were dropped. Someone bailed me out. The first thing he said was it your parents? I go, no. I specifically asked my mom and my dad, like, could you help? And they're like, no, only you. You're my son. Like, if it happened to you, I would bail you out, right? I would help you, but not Glenn. We don't know him, you know? But he said, an anonymous person, that's what the guards told him, or the sheriffs. That's what the sheriffs told him. An anonymous person bailed him out. No charges, no fines, no fees, no additional court appearances, no more jail time. Everything was dropped. To this day, family, to this day, there's no proof of it, but it had to have been Michael Jackson. It had to, right? So I went home and I told my parents, I'm like, Glenn is out, all charges are dropped, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. That's exciting, right? My dad, like I said, he ignored me for a week, so he was still like, like he didn't care, right? So, okay. At that point, my parents knew, so I'm like, let's tell everybody, right? Remember the girlfriend I told you about who I dated for a while from school? I remember I told her, and it was in my car, and she goes, oh my God, I'm gonna be sick. I go, what? She goes, I'm gonna be sick, pull over. So I pulled over the car, and she threw up. She puked all over the side of the road after I told her that I was gay. The other girl who had a crush on me, the one who I lost my virginity to when it came to a female, I told her, and guess what she did? She slapped me. She goes, what? That's disgusting. Yeah, I got slapped. I had a big red mark on the side of my face. Now my brother, here's an interesting story too. I went to tell my brother, but I didn't know how to approach him. He's 6 years my senior, And I'm like, how do I tell my brother? How do I come out to him, right? Because at this point, I asked my parents not to tell him. So, Man in the Mirror is great. It's my favorite song of all time, by the way. And yeah. So to wrap up my story, I went to tell my brother, this is what I decided to do. Glenn was having a party, and a huge party at his house, and I invited my brother. Granted, I shouldn't have done that because he was, I was 19, he was 13. You know, there was drugs and alcohol, but I invited him, and I decided I'm just gonna give Glenn a big kiss. I'm gonna make it a big old scene, a big old, like, you know, thing, right? So the music was playing, people were drinking, partying, and having fun, and on and on. And I asked him to stop the music, and I'm like, Glenn, come here. I'm gonna do it now. I'm gonna do it. And he knew that I was gonna come out to my brother. So I'm like, okay, Robert. My brother's name is Robert. I said, Robert, look. And he turns and looks, and everybody just paused, right? Because again, Andrew's doing this big old show. And they gave Glenn a big old kiss. And I'm like, mwah! And I'm like, Robert, I have something to tell you. I'm gay. And he's like, I know. I caught you and Steve in the hot tub about 2 weeks ago. And I was like, what? What? 100%. I was like, what? Oh my God. Okay. That was embarrassing. Everybody laughed. The tables were turned. And I was like, well, that didn't go over well, right? So, yeah, everyone laughed. And he already knew. So much for that, right? Okay, so fast forward a few weeks later, I got the mail from my parents' house. Okay? The mailbox is up the street, and I used to get it for my parents on a regular basis. Inside of the mailbox, there was a white envelope like this. It was folded. And what's ironic was it said, do not bend. Okay? It was folded, and it said Andrew Short with my address. And in the upper left-hand corner, there was no return address. It just had a stamp, Los Olivos. Family. Los Olivos is the little town where Michael Jackson's ranch was at. Okay, it's right near Santa Ynez. I opened up the envelope, and inside was this picture. Now, it wasn't framed. It's framed now, as you can see, but it's an autographed picture from Michael saying to Andrew, love Michael. And I just teared up. I'm like, it was Michael. He got my note. He must have bailed Glenn out of jail. I'm like, holy shit. Like, unbelievable. I had it framed and I showed everybody. I was like, wow. To that point, I never met Michael. I never got invited into the ranch. But this picture, if my house were to ever burn down and I'm standing outside and the firefighter says, okay, Andrew, you have 10 seconds. You can run inside and grab one thing. No pets, just hurry. It would be this picture. That's what I would grab. When Michael Jackson died, I would never sell it. Don't get me wrong, guys, I would never sell it. But I wanted to find out how much it was worth. When he died in 2009, the price went way up. It went way up, and I was like, wow, okay. But again, this is more of a personal thing to me rather than monetary, right? So, I never got inside of the ranch, but when the movie Michael came out as an extra, I got booked, and we filmed 6 days inside of the ranch. So I was able to see the ranch. I was able to be on Michael's property. Sorry. I was able to go on the rides. I was able to see the wisdom tree, and big sign that says Neverland. So my dream had finally come true. Now, granted, Michael was already gone, but still, I was inside of the ranch and I finally got to see it. Fast forward to today. I'm married today, you guys. I'm happily married. I'm coming up on my 10-year wedding and anniversary. I have a wonderful husband, and I'm extremely happy and proud of who I am. This is a picture of him. Isn't he handsome? So that's my story. My name is Andrew, and I want you to share this with everybody that you know. Thank you.